What's going on YouTube? It's your boy RonnyPugs back again with another Spider-Man PS4 video for you guys. And originally I wasn't planning on dropping this today. I wanted to do a video related to Avengers Endgame with no prior knowledge that the trailer would be dropping today. That trailer was amazing, you guys. Let me know in the comments below what you guys thought about the trailer. But due to scheduling conflicts, I wasn't able to get everything prepared for the video, so I will be dropping that video on a later date. But not too long ago, I shared my list of the top 5 worst suits in Spider-Man PS4 post DLC, so I figured today I could continue that series with the 5 suits in-game that I feel are underrated. Unlike my worst suits video, these costumes will be in no particular order as I feel they're equally underrated, and the basics of this video will consist of suits that aren't necessarily terrible, but I feel like they don't get the respect they deserve. These aren't the costumes you typically see as fan favorites, but at the same time there's a lot of elements in these costumes that I enjoy, but sadly they get overshadowed by the better looking suits in the game. And with that, we will begin the video with my top 5 underrated suits in Spider-Man PS4 in no particular order. Remember, this is all opinion based, so if your list is different from mine, don't feel too bad about it. Or if there's costumes on here that you think are complete garbage, that's fine. At the end of the day, it's all an opinion. Beginning the list with the first underrated suit of Spider-Man PS4 is the wrestling costume, which is an Insomniac original design, heavily inspired from the Ultimate Wrestling suit with elements of the Human Spider. The thing I like about this costume is that it showcases the relatability of Spider-Man like with the homemade suit, because this obviously isn't high-end material used on the costume, but it's something that we could all make which perfectly represents the character. This costume is about the closest thing we'll see to the Human Spider unless we do end up getting that suit for the sequel, but overall I'm happy with the wrestling suit that we got in game. I think the thing that turns people off about this costume is the mask, which I can agree looks odd, but to me the one aspect I don't like about this costume is the shoes. Hopefully these aren't the regular shoes that Peter Parker wore in school, because he would have been roasted even more than he already was. But all jokes aside, one small detail about the costume that I feel gets overlooked is the classic web shooters. These are a perfect representation of the comics, and for that and the previous reasons, I believe the wrestling suit is one of the 5 most underrated suits in Spider-Man PS4. Up next is a costume that can technically fall under the category of movie costumes, which is the Fear Itself suit. And I say that we could call this a movie costume since the concept art for Spider-Man Homecoming featured a suit very similar to this, and it even had its own figure for the film. So you can kind of see where I'm coming from, as I feel like this is an underrated costume since it resembles a costume that we almost saw in film. I also think this is one of the best costumes to use during nighttime gameplay since the LED pattern stands out most when it's dark. I'm also a real big fan of the shade of blue that they use for this costume, which will come into play when we discuss another suit in this video. The thing most people dislike about this costume is the gauntlets on the wrist, which is comic accurate, but I can agree that it looks stupid during gameplay, especially when the rest of the suit doesn't fit well with the gauntlets. We've seen Insomniac give their own interpretation of comic costumes such as the Bagman suit, and even using their own classic suit template for Spider-Punk, so I wish Insomniac would have changed the size of the gauntlets on this costume, but nonetheless, the Fear Itself costume is a decent costume, but it's just not good enough to be one of the best in the game since it's overshadowed by better looking suits. However, I feel like it is one of the most underrated. The third underrated suit in this list is another Insomniac original design in a pre-order bonus, the Velocity suit. Now I won't lie to you, I wasn't a fan of this costume when it was first revealed. I figured it was basically a rip-off of the Ends of Earth costume, which is a costume I'm not really a fan of, so obviously I'm not going to be a fan of the Velocity suit when it was first revealed. However, after playing the game for months and experimenting with the various costumes, the Velocity suit became one of my sleeper suits in the game that I feel is underrated. I think the shading used on this costume is great. I love the shade of red, and just like the Fear Itself suit, I love the shade of blue. But the reasons why the suit can't be one of the best is due to one of the spiders not glowing like I think they should, and I'm also not a big fan of the lenses and the back spider logo. And although there are some aspects of the Velocity suit that I don't like, it is a costume that I'd use to swing through the city with, since it looks good during any time of day, and overall it's an underrated costume in my opinion. Moving on from one Insomniac design to another, and probably the best looking costume on this list, but one I feel doesn't necessarily get the respect it deserves, the Negative suit. This one makes the list because it's the best negative suit design we've seen in any Spider-Man game. I think before this, the last time we saw the negative suit was in TASM 1. However, that negative suit in game was just basically a black and gray suit opposed to what this game did, which was put an actual negative filter on the costume. Like the Fear Itself suit, this is one of the costumes that's great to use during nighttime gameplay, and it's also one of the costumes that work well within the story when fighting Mr. Negative or the Demon Gang. But I do think it's a missed opportunity to not make this suit canon to the story instead of it just being an unlockable costume, because the one thing that bugs me about this game is that Spider-Man enters the negative zone and everything but him has a negative filter applied to it, which could be because he's the only one that's not corrupted. However, I think it would have been more interesting if when using the advanced suit during the negative zone levels, the advanced suit would turn negative, thus creating a canon costume that we could eventually unlock after completing the Mr. Negative levels. And before we move on to the 5th costume on this list, I wanted to share one of my honorable mentions for this video, the Last Stand Spider-Man suit. This is a costume we haven't really seen in Spider-Man games, and when we have, it didn't look as good as it does in this game. And if you've been a fan of this channel for a while, you know red and black is my favorite color combination for Spider-Man, which this suit does feature, and I believe it's the only classic looking Spider-Man costume that does feature this color combo in game. Relating back to the wrestling suit, this is a costume that features aspects to it that seem like anyone could make this costume. It's basically a jacket, jeans, and boots, which I'm sure wouldn't be hard to replicate for anyone trying to make this costume. And for some reason, it reminds me of the MCU Daredevil suit, not necessarily when Matt wears it, but when Dex wore the suit in Season 3, which is a weird reason to why I like this costume. So with that, we move on to the 5th underrated suit of Spider-Man PS4, rounding out my top 5 underrated suits for the game, the Spider UK suit. I'm in the minority, but I think this is one of the nicest looking costumes in game. The things I like about it most include the Union Jack pattern, the wrist communicator, the spider logo, and the colors used on the costume. What's different about this and just a reskin of the classic suit is the fact that Insomniac created a brand new classic suit template to work from for this costume. Unlike what we saw with the vintage comic suit, the Spider-Punk suit, and even the Cyborg Spider-Man suit, this classic suit features a brand new template that Insomniac worked from. The character model is very accurate to the comics, and overall it's one of the suits that I feel gets disrespected the most among the community. This is also the first time we've seen the Spider UK suit in a game, and in my opinion it doesn't get the credit it deserves, making it one of the top 5 underrated costumes in game. But basically that'll do it for the video. These were my personal top 5 underrated suits of Spider-Man PS4. You might think some of these costumes are the worst in game or even the best, but for me, these fall in between those two categories with them being underrated. So let me know what you guys thought of my list and share your personal list down below. Also, I'm planning to cap the series off with my 5 best suits post DLC, since that list has changed some since launch. And as always, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe, follow my social medias, and I will see you guys again in my next video.